I'm going to share an incredible narrative that truly happened in a place where television and written media do not reach, and reality is far removed from the great metropolises and the majority of the population. I am a serious man and do not appreciate jokes. I am not usually one to open up much. I prefer to keep to myself. However, lately I have been seeking answers for what I experienced. It was then that, while browsing the internet, I found your channel. After listening to some stories, I gathered the courage to share an experience I had a few years ago. I felt a certain embarrassment and even a bit of fear about exposing this story, afraid of being ridiculed by those who heard it. Nevertheless, I decided it was time to tell everything. To give some context, I was a doctor at a renowned institution, whose name I will not reveal, and I frequently traveled to the northwestern region of the country, specifically to Alaska. Yes, the Tongass National Forest, a remote and dangerous place. In that area, I carried out various activities with the natives, taking care of the elderly and children, as well as interacting with the local community. I slept in a reserved place, somewhat removed from civilization, which served as a sort of lodge for other people who were also there to help with the work. At this location, there were teachers and government agents who contributed different types of assistance. Additionally, we had the company of a local resident who was very fun and friendly, always present at the lodge. His job was to guide us through the forest to the tribes, where we could carry out our activities. Although this indigenous man did not speak English fluently, his communication was clear enough to be understood. We enjoyed asking questions about the tribe, and he would answer the curiosities of the group gathered around him. In a corner of the table, a biologist, almost invisible, decided to ask about the animals in the forest. He then mentioned all of them: grizzly and black bears, coyotes, wolves, and other creatures of the local fauna. The biologist, listening carefully, nodded in agreement and asked, "And what about the animal that haunts the region? Do you know anything about it?" In the blink of an eye, the friendly indigenous man, who had been so cheerful, suddenly turned serious and replied, "Oh sir, how do you know about that? Who told you about this matter?" The biologist explained, "I heard stories from another native about it, and I came here to study the species. It could be something unprecedented, don't you think?" The indigenous man then responded, "Study, sir? This kind of thing is not something to be studied. It's better left alone. These are secrets of the forest. I shouldn't even be talking to you about this." Those at the table were confused. The biologist insisted, "But can you tell me what kind of animal it is?" And the indigenous man replied, "I don't know exactly because I've never seen it, but the natives who have say it's big and very strong. They say there have been cases of natives from other tribes who went out to hunt it and never returned. And you really want to study this? You city white men have trouble understanding the mysteries of nature in the forest. I think I've mentioned this enough." The biologist intervened, curious, "Just tell me, where can I find this animal?" The indigenous man replied, "Today at dusk, but if I were you, I'd think twice before going after it. Well folks, I'm going to retire for the night. Good night, everyone." The third indigenous man said his goodbyes and went to sleep. Those who remained at the table quickly asked the biologist about this peculiar animal story. He explained that it was a creature he had wanted to study for a long time. "Anyone up for joining me to find it later?" he asked, laughing at the indigenous man. The others were skeptical, but the biologist turned to me and said, "And you, doctor, are you coming?" I replied enthusiastically, "Of course, I'm up for a little walk." I was already tired of sitting around, and a bit of adventure is always welcome, right? So we agreed to meet up at night. Everyone was watching TV in the main room. Even the indigenous man who had said he was going to sleep ended up watching the screen. It seemed like he only mentioned resting as a way to dodge the biologist's questions, didn't he? When we passed by them, saying we were heading out, everyone laughed but wished us luck. Only the indigenous man remained serious. Before we left, he warned us, "Be careful with the tall trees. Always look up when you hear any noise, no matter how small." Well, I confess that he gave me a bad feeling, a really unsettling one. It was as if he knew something was about to happen to us. And so, we set off on our mission to find the mysterious creature, with no clue about what it could be. We left armed with flashlights, a rifle, and some research materials, venturing into the heart of the dense jungle. We walked for about 20 minutes, immersed in the thick vegetation. The biologist lit the path with his flashlight while I held the rifle. We observed various types of animals and heard a wide range of sounds. Soon we started realizing we were acting somewhat recklessly. After all, we were searching for something we didn't even know existed. After a while, I suggested, "What if we turned back?" The biologist agreed, saying we were just wandering in circles without results. So we started making our way back. We walked and walked, but there was no sign that we were heading in the right direction. I commented that we were lost. Now what? The biologist, still calm, assured me that we would find our way out. We kept moving forward, but the situation didn't change. We walked for over 20 minutes through the jungle until finally we decided to stop. That's when we heard an unusual noise. A growl was approaching. Quickly we hid behind a bush and then we saw it. It was a grizzly bear emerging from the densest part of the forest, holding an animal in its mouth that appeared to be a bush fox. It moved calmly, its prey clenched in its jaws, when suddenly another creature, hidden in the tallest tree in the area, launched itself onto the bush fox. I wasn't sure if its intention was to steal the catch or if it would become prey itself. The creature descended with force, causing the grizzly bear to release the fox it had been carrying. And so began the most intense struggle for survival I had ever witnessed, and surely the same applied to the biologist. We had never seen anything like it. The grizzly bear was engaged in a fierce battle against an animal that resembled a dog. A large dog, armed with imposing teeth and claws. However, a dog would stand no chance against a grizzly bear of that size. A grizzly bear could easily kill a dog no matter how brave it was. So, what kind of creature was that? It leaped from side to side. It was agile as the grizzly bear itself. Time passed, and the two of us remained hidden in the bush, unable to move. But I had a rifle ready. I truly bet that if that creature came near me, I wouldn't hesitate to shoot. The fight was intense. The grizzly bear was biting and clawing, trying to defend itself in every possible way. The strange being attempted to reach its throat through various means, delivering brutal blows. We could hear the thud when it struck the grizzly bear. However, one question wouldn't leave my mind. What kind of animal was that? It was then that I began to observe its physical characteristics more closely. Its size, the shape of its mouth, the claws, the roar it emitted, its appearance and strength. Slowly, I realized that this being was not just a mere dog. It was what my grandparents, who came from the countryside, and the people living near forests and woodlands called a werewolf. However, the idea seemed absurd to me, as I believed that werewolves were nothing more than legends told by the elders to frighten disobedient children. But as I stood before that creature, I realized it was indeed real. It was, in fact, very, very real. At that moment, I recalled the words of the indigenous man who had warned us about the need to be cautious around tall trees. And he was right. Honestly, my greatest fear was that after eliminating the grizzly bear, the creature would turn against us. So I aimed my rifle at that entity and fired. The shot hit her arm squarely. I wasn't sure if that was really an arm. It seemed like it based on its length, but I had hit it. The creature felt the impact, took 3 steps back, looked toward the bushes, and crouched slightly as if searching for something hidden. At that moment, it fixed its glowing red eyes on mine and I froze. I had the impression that the monster smiled, as if it understood everything that was happening. I sensed a certain intelligence behind that appearance. Then, it retreated and vanished into the forest, taking its wounded arm with it. The grizzly bear, badly injured, managed to get up, staggering slightly. It gave us a look that seemed to carry gratitude, then turned and went on its way. We quickly got to our feet and ran out of there. However, we soon found ourselves disoriented in the forest. That was when we heard voices calling our names. Following the direction of the voices, we managed to find our companions. And there, with them, was the native man who had warned us. Joy spread among the group. The native asked if we were all right. I confirmed that we were. He looked into my eyes and gave a faint smile, sending a chill down my spine. As he turned to show us the way out, I noticed his arms were bandaged. I exchanged a glance with the biologist, and we understood the reason. He didn't want to talk about the enigmatic creature, because the creature was him. The next morning, during breakfast, I found myself alone, reflecting on the events of the previous night. That was when he approached, pulled out a chair, and sat beside me. With those piercing eyes, he said, "Doctor, did you find what you were looking for? I could have caused your deaths for the pain you inflicted on me, but I knew that would draw people from the city, which wouldn't be good for my tribe. Goodbye, doctor. One day we will meet again." Then he stood up and left. To be honest, after that episode, I returned a few times to finish my work with the tribes, but I never saw that native man again. The biologist also never returned. Only those who ignored the truth behind the story came back. Today, I am retired and live in a small town in the countryside, leading a peaceful life with my family. However, whenever someone shares a story about werewolves or the elite, I remain silent and listen. I am well aware that there are many things in this vast world that people don't even dream of. If only they knew the truth, don't you think? There are, indeed, realities beyond imagination.